are back here in the dark waters with me. This story has come from a couple who have had a lot of difficulty in their marriage. Ladies, if you are listening to me right now and your husband is unemployed but he is constantly searching for a job, understand that that man is in a real sensitive emotional state. Yes, he is insecure. And if you want your relationship to last, do not do anything to make him any more insecure. Do your best to help him get back on his feet and then move on together as you are supposed to. Don't do what this couple right here did. It ended up with him almost being murdered by a dogman. Listen to my warnings and heed my advice, for I know all things. And soon you will understand how much I do know. But for now, enjoy this story. Wait, some of you are retarded, and I need to speak out on this. I released the story recapping all of the stories for the previous week. And then you comment saying you have heard the stories before. The title says it is a recap. I understand that you rode on the slow bus and that you are so short that you can sit and kick your legs on the curb, but I do not allow that stupidity here. You have been banned. And if you return, I will chop your head off and put it on a pike. I will not even mount it on my wall. Yes, don't anger me with your foolishness. Think before you speak, or leave now.
So before this happened, the whole Dogman werewolf thing, there was no way that you could have gotten me to believe that that was actually real. Nope, no sir, no way at all. My neighbor came over one day and told me that he saw something crazy on his property. Now he was genuinely frightened and the man was scared to explain what he saw. And when he did, I'm not gonna lie to you, I wasn't rude, I wasn't but I wasn't exactly understanding either. Then I saw one of these things for myself. And as I was running away from it, I said, self, this couldn't possibly be real. I done moved into this damn house that I don't want to be in, and there's a damn werewolf out in the backyard. Now, with that being said, let me explain a little bit about the situation to you. When this went down, for the previous 2 years, I had been unemployed. Lost my job and one of the factories shut down, and I was searching for something else. The issue was that every job that I was highly trained for was out of state. And in the meantime, my wife, who made good money, ended up getting a raise, and then she decided we needed to move closer to her job. And then, adding insult to injury, her boss allows us to live in one of his houses rent-free. So when I first heard this from my wife, I had a terrible gut feeling. And I told her about it. I said, no, we need to stay where we are. We're in a good neighborhood. We have good friends. We don't need to go anywhere. But she insisted and insisted, then got an attitude, then stopped speaking to me. And finally, I relented and we moved outside the city of Houston to a small little area into a house that was owned by her boss, who she worked with closely on a daily basis. Then, if that wasn't enough of a dig and a bruise to my ego, that same boss decides that he's gonna buy us a brand new riding lawnmower. I tell my wife we do not need to accept this gift, we need to give it back to him, but she insists that it would be rude to give the lawnmower back. Understand, this is a $5,000 riding lawnmower. And I tell her over and over again, baby, I just don't feel comfortable doing this. And then the attitude comes out and she says that I'm unappreciative for the blessings that are coming my way. Well, I take that $5,000 lawnmower that was still in the box, get it loaded onto the back of my truck, drive it off into Houston and sell it. Take a part of that cash, buy a used lawnmower, and put the rest of the cash. So now I'm feeling good about myself. I done slighted the man who at this point in time I still got a bad gut feeling about him and my wife. And I'm out on this used riding lawnmower cutting the grass. It's Friday, 4 p.m. I'm on the far back side of the property. Had headphones on trying, to stay out of my head. Because like I told you earlier, part of me was insecure about being unemployed. And the whole situation I found myself in was just awkward, weird, and strange. And then on top of that, I got this slick son of a who's doing stuff technically for both of us, but in my gut, I just feel like he's trying to screw my wife. And if that wasn't enough for you, either my wife was being completely and totally naive, or she had already jumped out the window and started cheating on me with him. Listen, I'm just telling you all the things that were going through my mind while I was cutting that grass. Therefore, the reason why I was wearing those headphones, listening to rock music. I'm riding along cutting that grass, and then I noticed that the trees on the backside of the property start to shake violently. So violently that they look like they're going to fall over, and they're all shaking successively, moving away from me. Now mind you, I didn't believe in Dogman, werewolves, Bigfoot, none of that type of stuff at this point in time. But nonetheless, this was absolutely crazy to me. So I take off my headphones. Now I can hear this scratching in the trees, but it's moving further and further away. Well, I decide it's probably good to go see exactly what's going on, so I walk into the woods about 15 feet. And you know how earlier I was telling you that I get these gut feelings? Well, my gut is screaming at me, yo, this is really, really bad. You need to get the hell away from here. Because now the trees about 60, 70 yards away from me start shaking and rocking and swaying. But this time, just shaking, rocking, and swaying back in my direction. And listen to me when I tell you that this is one of the most terrifying things I've ever seen. Now, the distance from the spot where I was standing to the back door of the house was about a solid 75 yards. And I'm not gonna lie to you, I take off running full sprint on my way back to that house. Didn't even see anything at first. All I needed to see were those trees shaking. I get about 25 yards away from my back door and glance over my shoulder, and one of those trees is literally bent all the way over to where the top of the tree is touching the ground, and climbing down out of that tree is what everybody describes as a dog man. But to me, I'm gonna call it a big old werewolf, because that's what it looked like, a big damn werewolf. Listen, scared me so much, I ran straight into the house, through the side door, into the garage, cranked up my car, pulled off, and left. 25 minutes later, I'm back in my old neighborhood, sitting outside talking to my best friend Heath, who used to work at the factory with me, explaining to him what the hell I just saw, and he is just looking at me like I'm crazy. Then I call my wife at work and try to explain to her what just happened, but she's busy. She's listening, but not listening. And I tell her, babe, it's not a good idea for you to go back home. Come over here and meet me at Heath's house and we'll go home together. Like I told you, she's not listening. She's there trying to hold a conversation with me and talk to someone else in the background. We hang up the phone and now I'm sitting there contemplating what I should do. I didn't even want to be in this damn house in the first place. And now I learned that we got a goddamn werewolf in our backyard. Listen, my wife gets off for normally about 5:55, 6 o'clock. She gets home about 6:20. Now, I thought I was leaving early enough to beat her home. My plan was just to sit in the car in the driveway, and when she pulled up, to get out and explain to her that we need to leave. But I get caught in traffic. Don't get home to 6:45. While I'm driving up the street to the house, she calls me on the cell phone saying she needs to talk to me about something very important. And so now, I'm thinking that my old lady is about to break up with me. But when I pull up to the house, she says, have you been in the backyard? And I tell her, yes, I was in the backyard cutting grass, and I told you there was a monster that came out of the tree. She says, no, go and look in the backyard right now. So now I'm walking through the front door, out the back door, into the yard, and that entire lawnmower, the big riding lawnmower I told you about earlier, that son of a is broken, smashed into pieces, spread all over the yard. And then she tries to tell me that I'm the one who did that because I'm insecure about her boss getting us this house and helping us get the lawnmower. Understand the scenario. I am standing with my back to the house, facing those trees where that damn werewolf came from. She is standing in front of me with her back to those trees where that werewolf came from. And I'm calmly saying to her, baby, would you turn around and look and tell me if you think that I could smash that thing into those little bitty pieces? So you're trying to tell me that I could take the propeller off the bottom of that lawnmower and bend it and stab it into the ground? Really? You think I'm that strong? Now, as we're standing there arguing back and forth, those trees begin to sway again. I see them way off in the distance. They're swaying, coming this way. So now I'm gently pulling her by her hand and saying, babe, we need to finish this conversation in the house. But she insists that we need to stand right here and talk this out. I'll tell her again, baby, I know you don't believe what I'm saying to you. I tell her, baby, I know you don't believe what I'm saying to you, but I'm telling you, we need to go into this house right now because there is some weird going on out here. Please listen to me and come in this house. Imagine the scene. The trees are shaking behind her and her voice is saying blah, 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 because I'm focused on those trees. And I realize the only way to get this woman to come into the house is if I storm off. So I turn around and say, kid, I'm going inside. Stay out here if you want to. Sure enough, as I turn and start storming off, she follows me into the house, closing the door behind her. And once that door closes, I grab her by her shoulders, turn her around, push her literally into the door and tell her, look out there and tell me what you see. My wife sees those trees shaking back and forth like King Kong is holding those and using them for pom-poms. Turns around with her eyes wide open and says, what is going on? That's when I tell her, it's time for me and you to go. I will explain it to you later. Get your car keys. We are going to Heath's house to stay for the night. When we finally leave that neighborhood and get to my friend Heath's house, his wife and my wife are in the kitchen talking. He and I are on the back patio having beers, and I'm explaining to him all the drama that has just transpired. And that's when Heath goes into this diabolical line of questioning, saying, so, you're worried about your wife's boss trying to screw her, right? I'm like, yeah, I don't think that whole situation is kosher. I think he's trying to bust a move and do what he's doing, right? And he says, so he's the one who lets you live in the house rent-free. And I'm like, yeah, that's strange. You know, he wants us to live in his house, almost like he's taking care of my woman for me. Understand, Heath is sitting there, nodding his head up and down, like, yeah, I agree with you. I agree with you. Then he says, and it was her boss that bought the riding lawnmower, right? And I say, yeah, he broke every male boundary he could. His next question is, so your neighbor saw something weird as well, right? And I'm like, yes. He was like, now let me ask you a question about your neighbor. How does your neighbor cut his grass? Does he use a riding lawnmower? Does he use a push lawnmower? What does he use? And that's when it dawns on me. My neighbor, the one who said he saw the werewolf thing as well, he didn't use a lawnmower with a motor. He used one of those old school circular push blade grass cutters. And in fact, the only other two people on the street, when I saw them cutting grass, they were using his push blade mower. That's when Heath rocks back in his chair, takes a sip of his beer, and says, I think there's a little bit more to this than you realize, my friend. He says, you see, I'm willing to bet you her boss that owns that property knows that there's something bad off in those woods. And he's experienced it himself. And I'm pretty sure that he knows and understands that running a lawnmower in that neighborhood pisses whatever lives off in those woods completely and totally off. But yet, he bought you a brand new lawnmower. And as Heath is talking to me, explaining this from his perspective, it starts to dawn on me. He might be right. This dude, her boss, might have been trying to whack me this whole time. And those same words came out of Heath's mouth. He says, you know what, brother? I think it was something more nefarious going on. I think he was trying to kill you. And after he killed you, his plan was to take your wife.